He sat up with a gasp. The everything that ever happened to him flashes in front of him. A happy childhood, clearer than it was ever before. The good, the bad, and the ugly of his teenage years. Signing up for the Marines and halfway through basic contact being made. A lifelong love of cowboy and horror movies. A period of burning, painful madness in zero gravity after an even more grueling training on Earth. Friends and family and their faces and times together and apart. A deep, stabbing pain in his gut at the thought of never seeing his family again and the girlfriend he broke up with to reach the stars. The uncertainty, the admiration, the mission, an order, waking up to horror, an escape, a mistake. Herbert Jameson opens his eyes but sees nothing. He holds a hand to his hand and finds a soft cloth with metal plates bolted to it. The sheer sensation of touch is immense, like something the Nerd Squad would go on and on and on about when describing hypersensitivity. "You're awake, thank goodness. Your friends are out getting some breakfast. I'll let them know to bring extra for you," a woman's voice says, and there's a tapping sound. "I'm in the hospital, right? What the hell is wrong with my voice?" he asks as a higher pitch comes out, then he forces it down into its proper tone. It's rough on the throat, though. He reaches up and all but tears off the cloth before flinching at the sight of the black, chitinous creature in front of him. "No, no, no. I won't hurt you, I swear," she says, holding up 2 sets of arms. "I'm sorry, we all are. It's not excuse for our behavior, but we were all set up." She explains, and he absently wonders how she can even see him when she doesn't have visible eyes. Or is the entire stretched-out forehead a massive sensory organ? He absently reaches around him for some kind of weapon, and under his pillow he finds a pistol. One of the boys must have placed it there. He pulls it out, but doesn't reveal it, instead tucking it and the arm holding it under the thin blankets. "Oh? Set up? How?" "I was told that if you wake up when they're not here to give you a choice of a short explanation and a long one, and tell you that they have a recording of the massively public trial that's still ongoing." "I'm making galactic news?" "We all are," she says wryly, and there's an unfamiliar musical jingle. She pulls out her personal communicator. "Your friends want to know if you prefer sausage bacon or standard muffin. I don't understand. 3 different types of meat to go on a breakfast sandwich. Tell them yes, I'm hungry to the point my leg looks tasty, extra hash browns and the biggest coffee if the cafeteria is doing a McDonald's day," he says before holding up the thing that had been on his head. "So what's this thing?" "I'm not a medical student, so I don't know the official name, but it keeps your memories intact during a healing coma. Without it, then the restoration would wipe out your memories, too. Apparently all the memories flashing back to you when you wake up, is it giving all the memories back after copying them? I wouldn't know. I've never needed a full healing coma," she says, and his eyebrows go up. "Are you implying that reversing the aging process is something you people just do as part of the healing process?" he asks, and she shrugs. "Bonkers. The galaxy is bonkers." "Oh, like you humans are any less strange. I mean, really, who dives out a skyscraper window to escape his loving wives?" "Lady, you look like—" "The xenomorph from Aliens, I know. Do you want to know what happened?" she says somewhat tartly. Apparently the subject is already old, worn, and irritating. "Sure," he says. It is, after all, more useful to get information than to throw insults. The short version is that an under-administrator was on the payroll of Vifin Laka, a former political rival of Ambassador Hlela, set us all up. Due to the way our society is structured, her screw-ups would fall onto the ambassador, so the first time a human ended up on our territory, it ended up being a waiting bomb because of her. The math is simple. Take 100 eager young women boiling in their hormones, a man that smells of sex, and a story that he accidentally knocked himself with aphrodisiacs in his eagerness to please us, and being told we'll never got so good a chance again. Then you woke up and you know the rest. I take it the bitch has been dealt with? "Which one?" a new voice asks, and Herbert smiles as one of his fellow troopers, Christopher Dunn, walks in with a huge paper bag that smells amazing. "Thuna Lorne, the under-administrator that started this mess," the alien says, either fingering the guilty party or throwing someone under the bus. Maybe both. "Ah! Yeah, that bitch is still being turned over a spit in the court of public opinion, not to mention the actual legal courts," Christopher says, as he pulls out another bag from within the larger one. He hands it to Herbert, who grins at the smell. A large, steaming paper cup with a lid is put on the bedside table, followed by a second one without steam and a couple pills. A whack load of grub, followed by the biggest coffee they got. I also brought a tall water for fluid, and the vitamins are just a precaution. He explains before pulling out a smaller, less visibly stuffed bag for the alien and then hands her a cold-looking drink. He pulls one out for himself as well with its own steaming cup. So, what did I interrupt? What the hell happened? Herbert asks as he doesn't so much as bite as swallow a hash brown. Wow, things taste great now. The healing that you went through basically put you back to factory fresh at about 14. So as far as your body knows, your balls have freshly dropped, Christopher says as he pulls out an Eggo muffin and takes a huge bite of it. Anyways, your ambassador used this as a way to quickly get some laws passed, so this can't happen again. He also funded an investigation into Thuna Lorne and found out her connection to Vifen Laka and her duplicity. The alien says, and Christopher nods even as he quickly inhales his second sandwich and starts in on his hash browns. And about the, Herbert says, gesturing to the alien, turns out that a team made from 3 races tried to poke their noses into cruel space. It worked enough for them to tell where we are generally and that we were alive, so they sent the beacon. But it went both ways, so some people got different impressions. The aliens, the Predator, and the Greys are all actual races, but a lot of details slipped through the cracks. Like the fact they're pretty much all woman and eager to bone down, Herbert says with a snort, even as he polishes off his last hash brown of 4. And culture. The Dziden, as your girl Barizi here is, are as a whole a very respectable species. So huge on responsibility and owning up to fuck-ups that it was a big part in the frame-up you fell into. Damn. It's so hardcore that apparently Ambassador Hlela was all but confessing to a crime being committed against her. It's also why your girl here hasn't left your side since... Atatata! No! None of that! I made a mistake and will be making up for it. I don't deserve credit for basic decency. Barizi counters, waving 3 of her 4 hands at him. Christopher merely gestures towards her, and Herbert blinks in confusion. And the Predators? Please don't call a Yao-Ya that. They didn't take the movies well. At least the ones with my race only showed animals that looked like us a little. The ones with the Yao-Ya? It's either a psychotic serial killer who's horribly maimed, or a suicidal homosexual going out for a final bit of completely illegal fun before killing himself. Homosexual? Christopher asks. Apparently he didn't get this memo. The Yao-Ya have a tradition called the mating hunt, a cross between a camping trip, a massive makeout session, and a game. Barizi explains, and both men look to each other in baffled confusion. So you're saying that if the Predator movie wasn't a horror film, then the Invisible Hunter would be flirting with the soldiers rather than collecting trophies? Herbert asks in a stunned tone as the sheer idea of it is giving him a headache. And proposing to the big man at the end? Yes, Barizi says, and there's a pause as that sinks in. Oh, wow! That is going to take a long time to get out of my head. Woo! Holy crap! Christopher exclaims, and Herbert starts laughing out loud. After about a minute and the laughs peter away, Herbert finishes up his meal and downs the vitamins while draining the water. So, what about the Greys and the whole probing meme that went around? Herbert asks before slowly drinking the remaining half. Apparently, one of the scientists had not only a hardcore fetish but was indulging it that day, Christopher says as Herbert is drinking the last mouthful of water. The timing is perfect, and he immediately starts to choke to Barizi's distress. How the hell does that even get confessed? Herbert demands as he finally manages to cough out the water that he'd inhaled at the sudden intake. Sir Philip is not a man to mess with. If he's going in soft, then you'll give him your deepest, darkest secrets and not even notice. If he's going in hard, he doesn't even leave a stain as he tends to clean up after himself, Christopher says, and Herbert considers it for a moment. So I'm still married from what I understand, Herbert asks as he watches Christopher's pattern. He's jonesing for a little revenge. He can't help but notice Barizi flinch a touch. That's right. There are thousands of precedents that say no to annulling this nonsense and a lot of ambassadors that dig in their heels if they even think you're going to mess with the arrangement laws. That we got them changed as we did is a minor miracle supported by blackmail and bribery, but a miracle nonetheless, Christopher says before taking a sip of coffee. So I'm living in a harem anime? Herbert asks, and Christopher starts choking at the thought and spills what's left of his coffee. After getting his breath back and taking a few lungfuls to fortify himself, Christopher gives Herbert a grin. If you didn't look like a kid, I'd bitch slap you for making me choke. Not my fault you, never mind. Don't want to offend the lady present, Herbert says before running a hand through his hair and sitting up a bit more. The idea that a man has to be considerate for the sensibilities of a lady. Barizi titters in amusement. Well, fair maiden of darkest armor, humans are a rather over-the-top species, Herbert says with a chuckle and notices that Christopher is collecting all the garbage in the room. You're about to leave and call the janitor, aren't you? He asks, and Christopher nods. You're clearly in a good mental spot. You need this, he says, reaching under his chair and tossing a bag at him. Clothes, comm, spare mags and harness. I need to report in. The comm also has an emergency button. It's an all-call for the Dauntless, and in every communication hub in EFL ships. If you need to GTFO or find something that we need to jump on, then press that button. Loose leash protocols? Herbert asks in shock. You're a public figure now. You and Shay are both under loose leash. So they've been expanded beyond the EFL? Yay, and you're under them. Admiral's orders. He tells Herbert, pulling out an envelope from an internal jacket pocket. Paper? Barizi asks. The Dauntless getting hacked scared the hell out of us. It's harder to hack paper in rooms where all the walls and ceiling are covered by tasteful wood paneling and a fog machine going on to catch any cloaking, Herbert says as he breaks the old-fashioned wax seal with a doodle of a sword crossed with a gun for the emblem. He reads the orders and considers. It's good to know you have such a high opinion of my mental state, Chris. He notes before rereading it before folding it up and tucking it away. You do have the option to refuse, Christopher reminds him. Refuse? Refuse being a teenager again with a massive harem of eager women, Herbert asks, and Christopher snorts. Fair enough, Solder. Good to see that you're not really bothered by what happened, Christopher notes, and Herbert just shrugs. It was a bad scare. A very bad scare, but one of my tormentors is all but on her knees begging for forgiveness. There's no real point being angry. Besides, I went from drugged to adrenaline to Axiom to falling. Until I bounced off a rooftop, I was halfway convinced it was a fucked-up dream. Then the concussion blunted the pain until I passed out and woke up here. If she wasn't sitting there, and you weren't completely aware of what happened, I'd still kind of think it was a dream. Herbert explains, pointing to Barizi. You're fucking crazy, and you're getting therapy anyways. Oh, by the way, their most common pets are face huggers minus the wang, Chris says, walking out. What? Herbert demands in shock.